as we're all kind of coming in. I hope y'all have had a great day. I know our ag media has been in town, and it was fun to be with y'all this morning, and thanks for coming back. And for those that are not the ag media, welcome again to USDA. We have a really great couple of minutes where we're going to talk about fertilizer. And so I'm just going to go ahead and jump in. You'll get to hear from members of our cabinet and obviously some key leaders from the Hill as well. So again, I want to thank everyone for being here today. For years, American farmers and ranchers have faced high fertilizer prices, not least because of consolidation has led to fewer options and higher prices in the marketplace. According to USDA data, in the 1980s, we had nearly 50 U.S. nitrogen fertilizer producers. Today, 4 companies control 75% of the domestic nitrogen fertilizer market, and just 2 firms control almost all of the U.S. potash fertilizer market. American farmers need more options and more predictability going forward to keep family farms producing. Over the past several months, we have been poring over data that illustrates farmers' varying demands at different points during the spring planting season. And while the data continue to evolve, it's clear our farmers are feeling the pinch and the work must continue at rapid speed. Trump speed is what we like to call it in our administration. But I think it's important at the outset to note that this problem didn't just crop up. The Biden administration in particular did little as the price of fertilizer shot up 40% during those 4 years and hitting and one point in time even reaching 99% higher prices. This was, of course, on top of the other challenges that had snowballed during farm country during those years, including historically low prices in the last administration, where an ag surplus was turned into a $50 billion agricultural trade deficit between the years of 2020 and 2025. But we're not passing the buck or leaving problems for others to deal with. President Trump has asked us and tasked us to take on this difficult fight. There's no question ensuring our farmers can obtain the fertilizer they need at a price they can afford is a long-term problem, but one that also demands immediate solutions both for our farmers and our consumers. That's why we are tackling this challenge head-on right now as we're moving into planting season, including by collaborating in an unprecedented level across our cabinet and with our partners on the Hill. So today I asked all my colleagues at very last minute to join us so that we can together update on this problem that is facing our country and what we are going to do first in the short term and second in the long term. Long term is really where I want to focus most of today, but we also, obviously with prices where they are, want to talk about the short term. First, of course, you all know in March, President Trump suspended the Jones Act for 60 days to boost shipping flexibility and help vital resources like fertilizer flow more freely to U.S. ports. Just last week, President Trump further extended this waiver by 90 days. According to the U.S. Maritime Administration, we saw this tool used in early April for several anhydrous ammonia deliveries. So we've seen it actually in action, and we expect more fertilizer to come in under this waiver in the coming days and weeks. Number 2, we removed restrictions on fertilizer imports from Venezuela. In March, the Treasury Department waived restrictions on U.S. entities purchasing petrochemical products from Venezuela, including fertilizer, to increase domestic supply. We are working daily alongside both Treasury and State, Secretary Rubio and Secretary Besant, with companies looking to send us their urea and sulfur. One pending shipment, we believe, perhaps on its way based on current data, will fill about 57% of our April to June urea gap. Number 3, and fortunately, Administrator Zeldin, so grateful to him, but number 3 in the short term, rewriting diesel exhaust fluid rules. In March, President Trump directed our great EPA to rewrite the rules on the diesel exhaust fluid. I'll let Administrator Zeldin talk a bit about this one, but we're hearing, for example, the Dakota Gasification Company has deliberately prioritized higher urea production while reducing DEF output in wake of this recent news. Again, real-world answers to some of the policy solutions that we're putting out. Number 4, critical minerals. This work dates back to spring of 2025 as well, when President Trump reinstated potash as a mineral critical to national and economic security. This underscores our belief that the availability of affordable fertilizers is essential for U.S. food and farm security, which means, of course, national security. And our great Secretary Burgum will speak a little to that. Next, antitrust enforcement. In September of last year, just a few months ago, we signed at USDA alongside the Department of Justice an MOU to strengthen competition and harness agricultural input costs, including fertilizers. While Attorney General Blanche is not here today, we continue to have that discussion, and the DOJ is taking that very, very seriously. And the private sector is stepping up. Just last week, I had several of the CEOs from major fertilizer companies in the office here at USDA. Several of our cabinet members were there as well. A great American company, CF Industries, listened to farmers and to the administration and has delayed their scheduled maintenance on their ammonia plant in Donaldsonville, Louisiana, supplying an additional 100,000 tons of granular urea to U.S. customers that otherwise would not have been available this planting season. Another example, Pivot Bio is also allowing customers to lock in their prices through the 2028 season. Our administration continues to push others in the private sector to make similar commitments to our farmers. Strengthening the domestic supply is crucial, but we're not stopping there. The Department of Treasury recently announced they're taking action at the G20 this April in his capacity as chair of the G20 finance ministers and central bank governors. Secretary Bessent issued a chair's statement calling on countries to refrain from imposing export prohibitions or restrictions on fertilizer, and we look forward to our friends and allies stepping up to the plate. Here at USDA, we're currently harnessing ag precision technology alternatives to fertilizer on a scale never before seen in the history of our country. Last month, USDA, Senator Hoeven, launched the National Proving Grounds Network for Ag Tech to test and validate emerging and existing precision agricultural technology that reduces reliance on fertilizer imports. These new technologies hold the potential to radically improve the situation, and the best minds in America are already working hard to make that happen. Again, these are just some of the short-term actions that we have taken in the last 60 days to shore up fertilizer prices as much as is humanly possible with the current conflict. But I also want to note that we are looking, and perhaps even more importantly, at the long term and what we have to do to ensure this situation does not happen again. At our rural development mission in that area, we continue to build out production through a $900 million fertilizer production expansion program. The last administration saw only a handful of the 120 projects then awarded completed, and we are now working around the clock with a lot of these, dozens of these projects, to bring them to fruition. For example, natural fertilizer products in Ames, Iowa is near the finish line and will be online and operational this summer, increasing their production by 36,000 tons annually. I also want to call attention to two big funding opportunities that the administration is driving. Number one, and again, so grateful Secretary Lutnick is here to talk more about that, but the Commerce Department Investment Accelerator projects, fertilizer projects, investing over $1 billion in the United States infrastructure may be eligible for assistance from the Department of Commerce's Investment Accelerator, which is currently overseeing a historical, stunning number, $750 billion available thanks to our trade deal-related funding. Again, Secretary Lutnick will share more about that. Number two, Secretary Chris Wright. He's on travel today. He's not here, but asked to pass along the Energy Department's Energy Dominance Financing Program. This is Secretary Wright's program, and he's financing critical materials projects. Notably, just provided an over $1.5 billion loan for an Indiana ammonia project. Also streamlining permitting. The great Adam Tell is here to talk about that. But the Trump administration, primarily EPA, Department of Commerce, DOI, and the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers are specifically streamlining to put, again, at warp speed, the permitting for air, water, chemicals, environmental review, safety, and transportation. One example, again, I mentioned Adam, working today and tomorrow, and hopefully soon getting across the finish line to officially permit the CF Industries' new world-scale ammonia facility at Blue Point Complex in Louisiana, which is expected to be the largest ammonia plant in the world, with a nameplate capacity of 1.4 million metric tons per year. And then, of course, legislation, partnering with our friends on the Hill. Our administration is committed to supporting future federal legislative efforts, some happening right now, that alleviate high fertilizer costs as well. We continue to be laser focused and will not rest until this problem is solved. Through all of the above, and again, I'm going to turn it over to Kevin Hassett next, we believe that in short order, in the next year to 2 years, we could expand, back of napkin, our domestic nitrogen production by more than 30% just in a short period of time, our domestic phosphate production by over 200%, and our domestic potash production by over 100% with just the projects and the framework that I have just outlined. This is real world change for our farmers and ranchers and for our American rural communities and ultimately for national security for our country. Again, I want to thank everyone here. I want to reiterate and underscore that this president remains resolute and convicted to do everything we possibly can to ensure that we are doing what we can to make sure that this doesn't happen again with our fertilizer prices. Now I'm going to turn it over to the director of the NEC, Kevin Hassett. Kevin.
Thank you, Brooke, and I'm only going to speak for a couple of minutes, but I joked with Brooke when we first met almost that, you know, I grew up dairy farming, scraping manure out from under cows all winter, so I really know fertilizer. Yes. But it really is a thing that it was such an honor when the president asked me to be the director of the National Economic Council, and I called my old friend Bob Rubin, who was the first such director. And I asked him, like, what is the job of the National Economic Council? What are the challenges? And he said, the challenge is that the cabinet agencies tend to wander off by themselves, do their own thing, and before you know it, you know, the EPA has done something that the Interior Department can't believe and that the farmers are all upset about, or the farmers are looking for something they can't get help in this agency or that agency. And I was talking to a journalist a couple of days ago, and they said, what do you think is the most untold story about the Trump administration? And I think the best story that no one writes or has written yet is how incredibly these people have come together as a team. If you think about everything that Brooke just said, every little bit of thing that we're doing for the farmers is something that requires these agencies to coordinate. And so I haven't actually done a whole lot in this space other than be a coordinator. and I'm really, really proud of the camaraderie that we've created in the Trump team. And Secretary Bessent and Secretary Wright are part of that team. And where does the camaraderie and the productivity come from? It comes from meetings in the White House many times a week, where people disagree and agree and talk to the president, and then he decides. And I just think that if you think that we're moving fast, it's because we are. And if you wonder why we're moving fast, it's because we all are unified in the goal of helping American farmers.
Well said. Thank you so much, Director Hassett. And the White House is resolute. Now, Secretary Lutnick, to give us a little bit more color and context on his incredible work in reshoring to America. Thank you, Secretary.
Look, we all know that fertilizer input costs are a challenge for our nation's farmers. And President Trump is focused on it, so let's talk a few things about what we're going to do. We're going to invest in domestic fertilizer manufacturing. So if we can strengthen our domestic supply chains, our investment accelerator will create more manufacturing domestically here. We're also making sure we cut red tape so we can build and do it here quickly, so we can provide the relief that our farmers need to make sure they're feeding America. So we're also attacking, so what have we got? An executive order that says you got to stop price fixing. We have to go after everybody to make sure no one's gouging, make sure there's no anti-competitive behavior, and also make sure that the foreign influence stays muted and that we build and make our fertilizer here. So we've got to make sure that we do not, we protect American farmers, but we do not tariff that which we don't make here. So it's basically protect what we make here and let go what we don't make here so our farmers can get it without tariffs. And lastly, as part of the trade deals we did, as an example, the Japanese deal, not only do they agree to invest $550 billion in America to allow us to build out fertilizer plants in America, but they've also agreed to buy $8 billion of agricultural goods, because I'm always, Brooke is always saying, come on, Howard, you got to get out there and sell for us. So I'm always out there selling for the American farmers. So thanks for being here today, and we're all working together for you.
Yeah, thank you, Howard. Thank you. Thank you so much, Secretary Lutnick. And it is true, he is out slinging soybeans with the best of them, and we're so, so grateful to him. Secretary Doug Burgum, Department of Interior, thank you for your leadership on this, Doug.
Thank you, Brooke. Great to be here, and great to be part of this amazing team. To my fellow cabinet members and to incredible colleagues that we have here from the Hill, I want to say thank you again for your teamwork. Thanks for everybody being here today. I want to lead with gratitude for America's incredible farmers and ranchers and producers who work every day, and many of these small businesses are third, fourth, fifth generation operations, but they're not just feeding our nation. They're providing the important element that food security equals national security. But it turns out we can't have food security if we don't have fertilizer security, and we can't have fertilizer security unless we're winning the energy battles in the world because of where the inputs come from. But that's what we're here today. Like Kevin, who I didn't grow up in a dairy farm, but I grew up in a small town in North Dakota. Literally, one of my first jobs was working at the local grain elevator and agronomy location. So I grew up on the shovel end of the last mile, shoveling fertilizer, bagging fertilizer, paint anhydrous tanks. So the whole world of NP and K is quite familiar to me from when I was a kid. But working alongside Brooke and others, the National Dominance Council, all the other agencies you see here, Lee doing incredible work at the EPA, what Howard's doing to get capital flowing back to our country in record levels. Scott and Chris, what Kevin was saying about the teamwork was one of my messages as well, because it's really incredible. And we've got direction from the president, which is we've got to unlock critical minerals. We're in a position where our supply chains are too dependent on others, and particularly China, who are controlling not just the minerals but the processing. But to unlock that, the Bureau of Land Management, which is part of the Department of Interior, one of the things we've done is we've executed a significant pivot from the prior administration, where there was literally no mining permitting going on across the whole range of things. It didn't matter whether it was copper, aluminum, silver, critical minerals, but also for potash and for phosphate. And we've authorized 100 critical mineral permitting projects in the last 15 months under the Trump administration. Among those, 4 were major fertilizer-related projects across 130,000 acres that have been opened up in Utah, Idaho, and Nevada, again, unlocking phosphate and potash, the core inputs. But we didn't just approve those, we also sped them up. We've taken permitting that took years, moved it down to literally weeks and months. 2 of these projects, of the 4 fertilizer ones, we moved through what's called Fast 41, which is federal permitting reform law designed to speed up improvements for major infrastructure projects. And of course we can do that. We can go faster and we can protect the environment. There's no trade-off there. We're a country that can do great things quickly. And by cutting red tape and bringing certainty to the capital that flows into these projects, we get more capital, more job creation. We get, communities know, farmers can depend on the fact that we've got domestic fertilizer production. And so I think everybody up here knows that we do have a permitting problem. I do want to say thanks to the congressional leaders that are here for everything they're doing, working on fixing that. And of course, as we know that there's an urgency to this right now, we are moving at Trump speed. And Trump speed isn't just fast, it's smart, it's strategic, it's the right direction, and it's powered by the teamwork that you're seeing here. And we are strengthening this. The goal, to strengthen these domestic supply chains so that American farmers and American consumers aren't reliant on foreign sources. One of the other areas that, of course, for fertilizer, nitrogen's key, but whether it's urea, whether it's ammonia, anhydrous ammonia, it all comes primarily from natural gas. And the United States, under President Trump, we've gone from 15 months ago, there was a ban on exporting LNG from this country. Now we're the world's largest exporter of LNG. We're the world's largest producer of natural gas. We're the world's largest producer of oil, which of course helps us drive products down for refined products. I want to dispel something. People said, why are you exporting all this natural gas? That must be part of what's raising the price here at home. The answer is no. At the Henry Hub, where the price of natural gas, it was $3 a unit at the Henry Hub when the recent conflict started about 6 weeks ago with Iran. During the middle of that conflict, it was $2.70. For a while, it was $2.60. The price of natural gas went down. There's places in the Permian where natural gas is negative. We have so much of it, and we don't have enough pipeline capacity. There's places you can go in the Permian, and people will pay you to take their natural gas. And that, of course, is one of the major inputs for the ammonia side of things. So what we're doing here with energy dominance is also going to help over the long term when we start getting more the production facilities that Howard and Brooke were talking about, bringing those online. That's going to make a huge difference. So energy dominance is the key pillar of fertilizer security. It's also then fertilizer is key to food security. Food security is national security. That's why we're all here. Before I close, you're going to hear from them, but I do want to give a shout out to my fellow North Dakotan, John Hoven. Brooke talked about the Dakota Gasification Project. He'll talk about that. He was behind that when he was in the private sector, when he's behind it when he was governor. He's been behind it when he's a senator. They're a big producer of urea. And then, of course, everything that was related to tech, the tech that's coming in the future in automation and agriculture to reduce inputs and increase profitability. There's a project in North Dakota called Grand Farm. John has supported that since the day the concept came up. He's been back for every ribbon cutting, and I just want to thank him personally on behalf, because it's not just benefiting farmers in North Dakota, it's benefiting the nation. He's been a leader in ag tech since I've known him, and that's coming up on 30 years. So thank you, Senator.
Incredible to see it all come to fruition. Next, Administrator Lee Zeldin. No better friend of the farmers than you, Lee. Thank you. Please join us.
Thank you, Secretary Rollins. She's very generous in saying that, being that we all know just how she spends all day, every day with her entire team figuring out how to score wins for U.S. farmers all across this country. And very grateful for her leadership in bringing us here together to be with my colleagues on the cabinet and some of the greatest champions and advocates you'll find on the Hill for our farmers. It really is an honor for us to be here. It has been truly a privilege to serve as EPA administrator and be part of the Trump cabinet. And Kevin Hassett really said it best. The way that President Trump brings these agencies together to work together, to coordinate, cooperate. We're not siloed off in our own agencies and not talking to each other. We're working closely, and that is all day, every day. As EPA administrator, as I travel around this country, the number one topic that I hear about from our farmers is complaining about diesel exhaust fluid. And over the course of the last several months, there have been a lot of actions that EPA has taken, and it wouldn't at all be possible if not for the directive and leadership and vision of President Trump. Last August, while I was at the Iowa State Fair with Small Business Administrator Kelly Loeffler, we made an announcement. Secretary Rollins participated by phone. There's no way we can make an announcement like this without Secretary Rollins participating, and we announced new guidance to significantly reverse the deratements that we saw across this country. We then followed it up in February with right to repair guidance, making it abundantly clear that our farmers should not be forced to go to certain authorized dealers to be able to repair their own farm equipment. It saves time, it saves money, to allow these farmers to repair it themselves or to go to someone else who can help them without having to go far away and spend more in order to be able to fix their equipment. We also sent a letter to 14 engine manufacturers to request data as it relates to the SCR equipment and the equipment failures. One of the pieces that we hear as we travel around. When a farmer talks about how a DEF deratement is something that impacts them, it's not about, hey, I heard this story once upon a time that someone in my zip code claims that they have a cousin who had a deratement. It is a story of how that farmer has had a tractor 4 times during harvest that season derate at the worst possible time, and what that means as far as time and money too significantly adds up. But we need the data. In the meantime, President Trump announced this at the White House, a great event. I'm sure many of you were there. If not, you were tuning in with several hundred farmers from across America, and President Trump announced that EPA that day was getting rid of the requirement for DEF sensors. The next big move that we are going to be making is an announcement on proposed rulemaking on the 2027 nitrous oxide rule. And in that process, we plan on proposing to eliminate DEF deratements entirely. It is our desire to do everything that we can to the fullest extent of the law to be responsive in the Trump administration to the concerns that we have heard from farmers across America all day, every day, with all the powers that we have. And that is why Secretary Rollins, Kevin Hassett, brought us together to be making this announcement. It's not just about what one of our agencies can do, it's about everything that all of our agencies can do at once to be responsive to this crisis. Thank you.
Well said, Ms. Zeldin. Thank you, Administrator Zeldin. Next, our Assistant Secretary of the Army for Civil Works, Adam Tell. Thank you, Adam, for being here.
Thank you, Secretary Rollins. On behalf of Secretary Hegseth and Secretary Driscoll, I would just like to let everyone know that since the beginning of the Trump administration, under President Trump's leadership, the Army Corps of Engineers has permitted more than 1,000 energy projects. We are about to apply the same playbook, thanks to Secretary Rollins' leadership, to the fertilizer needs, the supply chain around fertilizers that our country has right now. We're on the phone every day with Secretary Rollins to ensure that these projects around our country, we remove friction from the system and allow our innovators to build here in the United States of America. On an annual basis, we process more than 100,000 Clean Water Act permits in partnership with Administrator Zeldin. More than 50,000 of those go through nationwide permits, and we just renewed those nationwide permits about 2 months ago for another 5 years. We're also embarking, and there's a public comment period that's open right now, to expand nationwide permits for new purposes. And I would encourage our agriculture community, our farmers, to take advantage of that and comment. Finally, I would just say, under President Trump's leadership, the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers is reforming in the greatest way it has in more than 40 years under the Building Infrastructure, Not Paperwork initiative. And it's a reminder of the importance of our inland waterway system and our ports in the United States. This is what allows us to get fertilizer to the heartland of America, and then they take products from the heartland to the world. And this is something that's underwater. A lot of Americans may not even know it exists. But we work every single day to make it more efficient, more effective, so that our channels are open and we can get American products to the world and we can get inputs to our farmers. Thank you.
No, beautiful. Thank you. This is very exciting to see all of this come together. Chairman John Bozeman, Senate Ag Committee, any thoughts?
Well, thank you very much for bringing us together. I don't know that anybody else could do it. This is a who's who from the administration. All of these people are incredibly busy, as you know. And I think it says two things. I think it says how important this is to President Trump to come up with solutions, and then also how what a great job, how persistent Secretary Rollins is in able to pull this off. So we really do appreciate it. This is all about trying to find a solution, not just short term, but very importantly, make it such that we have a safe, secure, reliable source of fertilizer as we go forward. As was mentioned, food security truly is national security, and then also the detriment to our farmers, the farmer community, when our inputs are so high up. So again, thank you so much for having us. Again, the administration is so well represented. Senator Marshall is here, Congresswoman Henson is here. They're doing a great job legislatively trying to get things done. You've already been said enough nice things about, but nobody does a better job on ag appropriations, coming up with the money that we need to get these things done. We'll be having a hearing in the Senate Ag Committee in May, talking about fertilizer, both from a legislative standpoint and into the future, what we can do in order to make things such, again, safe, secure, reliable into the future. Thank you.
Beautiful. Thank you, sir. Chairman John Hoeven, thank you for all your leadership.
Thank you, Secretary Rollins. Nobody works harder or cares more about our farmers and ranchers than Secretary Rollins, and you can see that. I mean, anytime there's a challenge, she dives in and she goes after it hard. And and your comments about the team are right on. And this team is committed to farmers and ranchers because President Trump is committed to farmers and ranchers. And you can see it here in spades. So look at this turnout. And so again, we know our farmers and ranchers are facing challenges. And Senator Bozeman, Senator Marshall, Congresswoman, we're working hard on those challenges with this administration. I want to just emphasize, Secretary Rollins talked about both the long term and the short term. Let me start with the long term for just a minute. She mentioned the Ag Tech Proving Ground. We're starting that at Grand Farm in North Dakota. It is super exciting. In the old days, we used to call that precision agriculture, but now it's Ag Tech. But it's really exciting, and again, a big thanks to Secretary Rollins, to Deputy Secretary Vaden for having the foresight, and Assistant Secretary Hutchins as well, to recognize that farming and ranching needs to be more profitable, more profitable. So when we talk about ag tech, we're talking about how do we make our farmers and ranchers more profitable, not just now, but for this next generation that we've got to get into farming. So if you haven't checked out the Proving Grounds and this national initiative on ag tech, you need to. It's exciting. It's going to make a difference now and in the future. So that's long term. Backing up to the short term, I want to thank Secretary Bergen for bringing up DGC, as well as Secretary Rollins. They are taking coal, converting it to natural gas, taking that natural gas and producing fertilizer in the heartland of our country. This isn't about getting fertilizer from Indonesia or from the Gulf. This is about making it right here at home. And we're going to do a lot more of that. And you heard about why it's possible. Whether it's Secretary Zeldin, whether it's Secretary Tell, or any of these great people, or of course the big guy, Kevin Hassett, who's kind of directing the whole thing, they are committed to making it here in America, right? And we're going to do it. We're on our way. The other thing is we are hard at work, and with the administration and with obviously our great leadership in the Senate and the House, we need to do more on the farm bridge assistance. So when we talk about long-term and short-term, we're also committed, and right up to the president, we've had those conversations on doing more with farm bridge assistance as well now in the short term.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Senator Roger Marshall.
Well, thank you, Madam Secretary. And I want you to come up here just for a second. And I just want to say that no one has done more, no administration has done more for the American farmer or rural America than the Trump administration. And it all starts right here at USDA. So on behalf of all the farmers, ranchers, and peoples in rural America, thank you so much. You know, the administration has done its job, and now it's time for Congress to do our job. We're dropping a bill today. It's called the Lowering of Input Costs for American Farmers Act. What this bill does, it eliminates the countervailing duties on Morocco's phosphate. This would lower the cost of phosphate fertilizer over 20%. Now, those numbers are from Texas A&M, so I hope you'll still accept that.
Must be perfect.
So it'll lower the cost of phosphate fertilizer by over 20%. That's $150 a ton, and that's real money when it comes to a Kansas farmer. But we need more than that, and we've also introduced a package of fertilizer bills as well. This didn't start yesterday. To what the Secretary was starting about, this really started when Russia invaded Ukraine. That was 2022, and what we saw were fertilizer prices jump up 50%. And it's just not nitrogen fertilizer, though about 20–25% of the nitrogen fertilizers are still made in Russia, traverse the Black Sea, but Belarus still accounts for about 35% of the potash world exports as well. So that war really started all this, and that's when we started working hard on fertilizer. We have a package of 5 bills. They're bipartisan bills. And they work together to lower farmers' fertilizers costs by requiring price transparency and market research, promoting domestic production and competition, reducing regulatory barriers. They all create pathways, also create pathways for one of my favorite areas for biostimulants at lower cost alternatives. And I say it's bipartisan. We have leadership from Senator Thune's bill, Klobuchar, Grassley, Baldwin, Ernst, Warnock, Hyde-Smith, Padilla, in addition to Hoeven's bill and of course the chairman of the Ag Committee here as well, who's going to give us a hearing very soon, and hopefully that'll be followed up by a markup on these bills so we can start lowering fertilizer prices tomorrow. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Senator. Last but certainly not least, and then we'll open it for some questions. The great Congresswoman Ashley Hinson.
Thank you, Secretary. Thank you. Well, good afternoon, everyone. Nothing gets my blood pumping, Senator, like talking about countervailing duties, which I know makes me a true Iowa nerd for agriculture. But I'm so excited to be up here with this dream team of people who are helping to fix these problems surrounding fertilizer. It definitely impacts our Iowa farmers. There's nothing I hear more about than input costs right now from our folks back home. It's because of decades of offshoring production and consolidation in the industry. It's left our farmers squeezed, and so we hear a lot about it. So if you're taking one thing, farmers who are watching today, from the people who are up here today, it's that we hear you and we are here to fix these problems for you. Iowa farmers also know that this is, again, not a problem that appeared overnight. These fertilizer prices have increased exponentially, as the senator said, over the last several years, creating not only that uncertainty, but let's face it, they've had razor-thin profit margins, if profit at all, and we need to reverse that trend. So I'm really grateful to the President, Secretary Rollins, this entire team from the Cabinet who is here to show what we're doing to help lower those costs for our producers, but there is more to do. And again, the Secretary talked about the short term, but again, there is more to do in the long term. So I am thrilled to have partners to work with across the rotunda to make sure we can get these policies through in Congress. We need to do more to bring our U.S. fertilizer production to capacity, build out that capacity for not only small but mid-sized fertilizer processors, and ensuring again that we are promoting competition and transparency. And I am proud to lead several of the bipartisan initiatives from the House side in Congress to grow that domestic supply and improve price transparency in our fertilizer markets. We know that our farmers are feeding and fueling the world. We talk a lot about that, and Secretary Burgum talked about food security being national security. Energy security is national security, and I won't stop fighting until our farmers get the relief and the transparency that they deserve. So thank you so much for allowing me to be here today, and I'll turn it back over to you, Madam Secretary.
Thank you. All right, we'll take some questions. You all, we have time for a couple of questions. Introduce yourself, and we're going to keep to the topic at hand. I know that's hard sometimes, but we're going to do just talk about fertilizer. Yes.
Secretary Rollins, C.J. Miller with Hoosier Ag Today and Michigan Ag Today. You had mentioned or teased a possible Indiana ammonia project. I'm kind of curious if you could elaborate a little further on that, because no doubt a lot of Hoosier farmers and folks across the Midwest would like to know a little bit more about Indiana ammonia project.
Well, the good news is we have multiples of projects moving out through the Midwest and down into the Southeast. We also have some coming out of Washington and California. We are not yet ready to announce specifics on all of those, but know that there are dozens coming. But that is a big opportunity in Indiana. We're really excited about it. We'll follow up with you directly with Alec on our team or Micah Boot and get you more information when everyone is clear that we can move that out. But it's coming. Thank you so much. Yes, sir.
Agriculture groups have been pushing the administration to lift those tariffs on countervailing duties on Moroccan and Russian phosphate fertilizer. Is that something that's under consideration? Are you open to this?
Yes, the White House and our administration is currently reviewing that. We're having very high-level meetings to discuss it. As with any team, there are varying views on the effectiveness, on what that could or should do, but it will be moving out a decision very quickly on that. I don't know, Kevin, if you want to lean in on the countervailing duty question.
Oh, it's just something that we're discussing with senior principals very shortly.
Right now.
We'll have a decision
Yeah.
to the president.
We'll have a decision very soon on that. Clearly, we are working around the clock to lift as much pressure off of the prices as possible. So even though there are varying views, there is, I think, real momentum toward movement in doing just lifting that pressure. And so if I think everyone is convinced that that will do that, then I think you'll see news on that very soon. Thank you. Yes. Yeah. Hello, Martha.
Hi, thanks for taking our questions. On the fertilizer production expansion project, you mentioned that it's a $900 million program. On the rural development website, it says there's about $700 million of that has been spent. Does the administration have plans to spend more than $900 million, to pull more money from the Commodity Credit Corporation, anything like that?
Yeah, everything is on the table. The 700 of the 900 million that's committed has not yet been spent. That's what we're working to deploy and execute, and again, put at Trump speed, not typical federal government speed, to move out on that very, very quickly. But I think it's important to, Martha, in context of everything else, the Department of Commerce's pot of money, that they are very committed to seeing a lot of these major projects through. The Department of Energy's pot of money, and there's a lot of opportunity. It's interesting, when I had the CEOs in my office last week with a few of the cabinet members who were here, we went in pretty deep. I said, show us your plans, show us what you're looking to do. I don't want to call the company out, but one of the companies said, we're ready to break ground. This is different than the Louisiana project I mentioned, but we're ready to break ground. It's a Midwestern project on one of the largest plants that potentially could come online in the world, but we've been caught in permitting now for years and years. And so this is why I think today's effort, and with some announcements, but with some reiteration of what's so important, is a historical game changer on this issue. And when we all leave, at least our administrative jobs, in 2 years, 8 or 9 months, whatever it is, I think we can get back in this room and review what has happened, because this is all going to be moving very, very quickly. Yeah, thank you, Martha. Yes. And if you'll introduce yourself.
Yes, hi, Skylar Woodhouse with Bloomberg News. Thanks so much for doing this today. And I just wanted to see what you have sort of talked about all of these projects and announcements that the administration has been working on, but what do you say to the farmers who still are saying that the administration is not doing enough, especially as planting season kicks off, and it seems as if the war in Iran does not appear to necessarily be maybe wrapping up anytime soon?
Well, I think that's why we gathered today. I can't tell you, and I hope you all know in the press and those who are watching online, this all of government approach. And obviously, as a Reagan conservative, I cringe a little bit about saying the government is here to help you. But in this instance, this is an instance where there is a massive gap in the market. We could have another press conference on the consolidation of some of our major producers and processing plants. We could have another one on, the national security implications of this are real. And when you look at, I think I mentioned we had 40 fertilizer plants just in the nitrogen area in the 1980s. We're now down to 4. These are significant issues, but they didn't pop up overnight. And so that's the message to our farmers, is we are doing everything we can. I was in Wisconsin yesterday talking about it, Missouri at the beginning of the week, Michigan last week, talking directly to our farmers, and they understand. They say, we want freedom in the world. We want America to be safe. We support the president in what he is doing in Iran. But several people mentioned this, the state of the farm economy is very fragile, and we all know that. You're all here and understand that very well, that for a long time these farmers have barely survived. We are working to build the infrastructure, whether it's through new trade deals, whether it's bringing the cost of inputs down, whether it's protecting our farmland from being purchased by foreign adversaries, putting all the formulas in place to ensure that we are moving into a golden age for our farmers and ranchers. And this fertilizer piece is a really big piece of this. I wish I had a magic formula. I could snap my fingers and I'd give anything if we could do something today that would bring fertilizer down by 50% by tomorrow. But this has been a long time problem. In fact, the guys in the back aren't going to be able to see it, but I do have a chart, and it shows you this is 2022 when fertilizer spiked. Of course, the Ukrainian-Russian war caused a lot of that, but see how high the numbers are in 2022. I'll just show you my fingers up here. This is where we are today. Lower than that, significantly lower than that. And the reason I say that is not to ever mitigate or say our farmers aren't facing significant problems from the fertilizer prices, because they are, but this is not a new problem that just happened in the last 60 days, and this is what we're working to solve for the long term.
Secretary Rollins, can I add something
to
that question? I just want to communicate with my farmers again, reminding some of the work that we have done that they're just now seeing relief. So the Working Family Tax Cuts bill, we added $50 billion to crop insurance as well as the reference prices. So this fall, when they're getting their crops in, the reference price is going to give them significant relief as well. From the tax side, we doubled the death tax exemption. We gave them permanence on the 199A deduction, and then they can write off interest deductibility, bonus depreciation as well. And what I said earlier, this administration, and in this case, Congress has done more for the American farmer and rural America than anybody in history has. A $50 billion Rural Health Transformation Fund on top of that. So there is relief on the way. And by the way, we need to get USTR Greer here and talk about the 25% increase we're expecting in ethanol and corn exports as well. So I think there is some relief on the way.
Yeah, that's right. Thank you, Senator. We'll do one more. Yes, sir.
Secretary Dale Samuel, Southeast AgNet Radio. Can you discuss the efforts that the department has undertaken to address the price discovery on fertilizer?
Price discovery on fertilizer, what we're doing at USDA. Stephen, Deputy Secretary Vaden, do you want to lean into that? Our fertilizer expert here, our great Deputy Secretary, Stephen Vaden.
So you've raised a very important issue, because the way price discovery generally works is you have multiple competitors in the marketplace, and it's through their competition we find what the appropriate market price is, and consumers generally rely on that. As you know, when it comes to several of these fertilizer markets, we have at times two companies that control 90% of the market. And so you have a question as to when there are only two companies competing, do we really know what the market price is? Because do they have the incentive to go against one another as if we had 5 players, 6 players, more players? So I think an important piece of that is what the Department of Justice, joined with the Federal Trade Commission, are currently doing. It's public knowledge that they are investigating the fertilizer market. They are issuing questions to these companies. They're examining their business practices. And we need farmers to share with us the information that they have about what they are hearing from their own fertilizer dealers. Because I know, for example, when I go back home to Northwest Tennessee, they'll tell me about phone calls they got that predate the conflict in the Middle East. And those phone calls all say the same thing. If you buy your fertilizer now, it's X. If you go down the road 30, 45, 60 days, it'll be Y. Y is always greater than X, and on. And that's very interesting for a commodity that's supposed to be publicly traded. And if we're talking about other commodities like, for example, oil or other widely known commodities, you wouldn't be able to say that with such assurance. And yet our farmers have been dealing with that for years. So that is where the President's executive order asking the Department of Justice, asking the Federal Trade Commission to look into these markets take place. But it's also where the initiatives that each of these cabinet members have announced have come into play, because by getting more people in the market and more supply, we will have more competition, which will give us more faith that the price that farmers are paying is indeed the correct market price.
Excellent. Well said. All right, everybody, thank you so much. Thanks for being here. It's an honor to have you all here, and thanks to my fellow cabinet members and Hill. Thank you.